What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Inside the Lines. Mackenzie won't be here today. She'll be back on Monday, so I'm hosting again. We're going to go over a lot of NFL and NBA today. So not too many college basketball games. I think there are only 4 NHL games as well. So we're going to put all our focus on the NBA and NFL today, heading into the weekend. Let's bring in Steven and Jake here. We're going to get into our first game, the Ravens and the Chiefs. So the line movement, the Ravens have been, they opened around -3. They got up to -3.5. They're all the way up to -4 now. The total is still around 44.5. We have the Ravens projected 25, the Chiefs projected 20. Steven, you like Justice Hill over 7.5 rush attempts. We'll get into our first play here.
Yeah, but before we get into that, I do think that if the Chiefs had our year statistically and we had the Chiefs year statistically, and this is being played in Kansas City, they'd probably be 13.5-point favorites. So that's just, I don't know what that means and how to capitalize on it, but that's how my honest opinion. I like Justice Hill over 7.5 rush attempts at plus money too. The model has him at 8, and I think that's actually underselling his value. So Gus and Lamar's lines are 10.5 each. That goes to 21. The Ravens average 32 rush attempts per game. I think they might run even more by percentage basis to try to keep Mahomes off the field. So that leaves, again, 10-plus carries to Hill, and I don't think it's going to go to Dalvin Cook. He's also the best pass-protecting chip blocker for Chris Jones, and he's also the one running back who has a chance of actually running away from Chris Jones, as opposed to who's going to be playing in the inside, as opposed to Gus, who's been getting stuffed at the line a lot more than he did when he first burst onto the scene.
Awesome. We'll go in our next play here then. We've got Odell Beckham Jr. over 19.5 reception yards. This is you as well, Stephen. Yeah,
so Odell, this is a funny line. The model projects him for 32 yards. That's because we like him to have 2 catches. The betting line for his receptions is over 1.5 at -174, which is heavily juiced. So that's basically the odds maker saying, yeah, 2 catches is what Odell's in for. He averages 16 yards per reception, which are number 1 on the team. So I see this as a real opportunity that everyone who knows what they're talking about thinks he's in it for 2 catches. And so that, 19.5 is just way too low for a guy who's averages over 16 yards per reception. He did have his 1 reception early against Houston, and I know he didn't have anything after that, but that was because, Houston was blitzing like crazy. And then the second half, we are so effective on the run game that we didn't have to use Odell in the role that we are intending to use him. So going into the game plan was if Houston played their normal defense, Odell was going to be featured.
Yeah, this line doesn't make sense, like Steven said, with the juice heavily on the 1.5 receptions, but the line only at 19.5 yards. I was thinking, I told Steven before, that you could probably play the under 1.5 receptions at plus 130 and then outline over 25 yards at plus 130, and you'd probably hit one of those 2. Because this just doesn't make sense that his line's right there when he averages 16 yards per reception.
Which is what I'll do after today's show. Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, we also know Odell is capable of hitting this in 1 catch, right? He catches a slant, and he's going for a long time. So, I mean, 19.5 is pretty low, and we also know that he shows up in big games. So I definitely like that play as well.
Could be a game-winning one-hander, in the end zone.
A 3-finger catch.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll go into our next play here. This one's from you, Jake. We got a parlay. What do you got here?
Yeah, I'm going with Noah Gray over 1.5 receptions and McCole Hardman under 1.5 receptions. You get that plus 292 on DraftKings. It's kind of a correlated same-game parlay here because I think if Gray gets over the 1.5 receptions, McCole Hardman's not doing anything. He had 3 receptions last week, Noah Gray, and McCole Hardman had just 1, and he fumbled the ball. So that kind of puts him immediately in the doghouse. That almost cost his team the game when they could have gone up 10 and stayed at 3. So, and I looked and using Steven's thing where he put the spread into the database in the last 2 years when the Chiefs are underdogs, the over has hit in 3 of 5 games for Noah Gray's reception. He has 3 receptions in 3 of those 5 games and 1 in the other 2. So it looks like when they are playing from behind, he kind of is a little bit of a safety blanket with all eyes on Travis Kelce. So, but also I like just this because it's heavily correlated.
Yeah, if one gets 2 receptions. The other's obviously likely not to catch as many balls. You know, he can only throw so many times. And with the weather, it's supposed to be raining, you know, most of the time. So that could hinder both sides in terms of passing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll go into our next play here. This one's from you, Steven. Rashee Rice over 59.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, I did this partly to credit Jacob and the importance of watching our little show here every day. Because on Monday, the line was available at 52.5 around 30 minutes. And that's when Jake got it, because he's like that. So we've all lost a lot of value here. The model is, you know, a solid over 67 receiving yards. I just think that Rice and Kelsey, I do buy into the narrative that those are the two overwhelming favorite targets for Mahomes, who, even if you do the best you can do is probably hold him to 240, 250 passing yards. So I like Rice to get at least 25% of those yards. The chance that there is a chance that Kansas City's playing from behind, where they're going to take more chances downfield. And we're actually projecting under for Rashee Rice's receptions. So I kind of like the fact that even though we don't think he's going to catch that many balls, he's still projected for over in yards.
Awesome. And we've got one more play from this game. This is also from you, Steven. Travis Kelce over 5.5 receptions. You think that he's going to at least tie Jerry Rice for the most receptions in postseason history here?
Yeah, I don't trust the over in yards, because, you know, the Ravens, on anything third and long, they do these creative schemes to bring pressure to force the ball out quickly. We concede that 5-yard pass, like don't have anybody within, you know, 6 yards of the guy, but then we close really fast. You know, we're not, unlike most teams, we really do a good job preventing yak. So 3rd and 10, we give him a 5-yard completion, we tackle him 3 yards, and that's the strategy. So I think that there's no way you can stop Kelsey. Kelsey's done so much damage in his career because everyone tries that, but then he runs for 7 yards because the safety that's guarding him is either too small, or he can high point it because they're too short, or they're not nearly as fast as him if you put a linebacker on him with the hood. But Kyle Hamilton is the one player who ever existed that can match Kelsey at all those dimensions. And Kyle Hamilton's a genius. I just heard a podcast today. He knows, like, he memorizes extra 10 numbers for pi for fun. So there you go.
Is that genius or is that something else?
Hey, I don't know. It's a genius. He's the smartest, greatest physical matchup.
I memorized 50 digits of pi in 8th grade for 100 on a test grade, and I still have them in my head. So I don't know why.
There you go.
I'm not going to bother you guys and rattle them off, but I got that up my sleeve as well. It's a not so good party trick to have.
The best thing about that trick is no one can call you on it. You can just rattle off numbers. Let's just say 3.14.
That's very true. After you get to like 10 digits.
Well, I remember.
So on the podcast, he rattled off like 50 digits, whatever, and then afterwards they immediately checked it, you know, just to make sure that he wasn't lying.
So it was a 50 for a test grade for if you got 50 digits, and then for every 5 additional digits, you got another point on your test grade. So I memorized 250 digits and got like 130 something on my test, and I didn't have to go to geometry class the rest of the year. So that was the best.
Wow. Good for you.
All right, and we've got one question from this game, guys. Lamar Jackson over 64.5 rushing yards. I feel like this is a good question because I've seen a lot of people on both sides. Kansas City defense is pretty good. Lamar should be trying to run it. He will take the yards if he gets it, and it's going to be raining. So what do you guys think here?
Yeah, I mean, the model doesn't have any value. We have pretty much the exact same number, but my hunch is yes, that he will run a lot more design runs. His rushing attempts and yardage goes up in the playoffs. I saw a stat today that in his long runs this season, he's never run slower, right? So this season he's been taking very careful. Once he gets first down, he doesn't care about going 8 yards per carry. You know, that's why his yards per carry were down like 5.5. He's like, get down, avoid the hit, we got the first down. It's the playoffs. You saw what happened last week, where it's like, nope, goal line, I'm running it in. And I think this, like, I always think of Stetson Bennett running 10 for 10 rushing touchdowns in Georgia on the Todd Monken. In a gotta have it situation, I think Lamar is going to actually run his max speed as opposed to, you know, just sort of evading defenders.
All right, we'll move on to our second game here now. We've got the NFC Championship Oh, got to take down the Kelsey banner. The NFC Championship between the Niners and the Lions. So this started at -7 for the Niners. It's gone up to -7.5. I still think you can find some -7s in the market.
Yeah.
Totals at 51.5. We're projecting the Niners to win by 10, 29-19 here. So we'll go into our first play. This is you, Steven. Brandon Ayuk's longest reception over 27.5 yards at -114.
Yeah, so this bet started as an over on his 80.5 receiving yards, but then I saw that we're projecting under 5.5 receptions. I was like, oh, I don't like when we have that combination. But it's that led me to like, oh, that's because the Lions, we know, give up tons of passing yards and big plays, especially on the road, 8.2 yards per attempt allowed, which is like almost like a yard worse than what they do at home. CJ Gardner-Johnson and their corners are notorious for not handling poorly maintained fields very well, going back to the Philly game, the Super Bowl last year. Obviously, it's a different story entirely, kind of a grass field versus Super Bowl. But I like Ayuk to have at least one long catch of 30 or more.
I like it. All right, we're going to go on our next play here. Jahmyr Gibbs over 3.5 receptions at plus money.
Yeah, so he's obviously had 4 catches the first 2 weeks of the playoffs. I just like the fact that David Montgomery's rushing yard line and attempts has gone down and Gibbs going up. So it's an indicator of this feeling that Gibbs, given his explosiveness, is going to be on the field maybe for more than 50% of the snaps. So the combination of design pass plays to Gibbs where he's like the number 2 option, and the fact that he might need to get a dump off, Goff might need to dump it off to him just to preserve himself from getting hit. I like that combination leading over, because it's always curious to me why Gibbs only averages 6.5 yards per reception. It's because he is that safety net. Okay, I can dump it off to him for 1 yard and he'll run for 4 more. So that's why because usually an explosive back like that would average more than 8.5 yards per reception if it was purely just on his design situations.
All right, and we've got a couple questions here. We're going to go to Christian McCaffrey over 36.5 receiving yards. What do you guys think here?
Yeah, the model likes that. Not tons of value, but we have 42 for McCaffrey. Debo, even if he plays, probably will play, won't be at 100%. And they play that similar role.
Yeah, I played over 123.5 rushing receiving yards because we had both value on both early in the week, but now that's up to 131.5 in some places. So I know if you didn't get that early in the week, people will be betting that up all week. I still don't mind that play because he's going to get a ton of touches in this game.
I think, I agree. I think as well, during the regular season, you're not going to overwork Christian McCaffrey, right? You don't need him to get 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 100 yards every game. Whereas now you're in the NFC Championship, you're going to use him as much as you possibly can. And
you can see in the projection, we actually have Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason with some carries, and they didn't get any last week.
Yeah. All right, we'll go on another question. Sam Laporta over 46.5 receiving yards.
I mean, we have almost the exact same line, 48. It's tough to call. Yeah, I said a big statistical game, but he's still dealing with injury. So I would take it. I would take it from what I saw last week.
And then last one here. Any thoughts on Pacheco missing practice this week? We were talking about this before the show, actually. What do you think, Steven?
If I was a Chiefs fan, I would be concerned because it's him and Tooney. Tooney's probably out. So those inside runs, you're going against, the number 1 graded nose tackle against the run in the remaining, according to some, I guess, PFF, was Travis Jones, who's actually the backup nose tackle to Michael Pierce, who's been awesome. And then you have Justin Madubuike, who is basically Chris Jones, Aaron Donald, young version of that, in the inside. So it would be tough for Pacheco to get those inside runs. And then on top of that, when he goes to the edge, you have Roquan and Queen who are just flying around.
Yep. All right, and we've got one more play here. Y'all know we couldn't just pass over this one. We've got Jared Goff over 0.5 rushing yards. It's at -125. We've been talking about it all week.
Yeah, this is Mackenzie has been doubling and tripling down on this. Model's got tons of value at 2.4. We got tons of value, 2.4 rushing yards projected. So that's like, I don't know what percentage that is, but it's a lot. But I looked it up. Last 4 games, 1 with Detroit, 3 with the Rams. In two of the games, they are like similar 7.5 point underdogs. Another game, they're like a 2.5 point underdog. In one game, they're actually favored. But he had 10 plus rushing yards in each of those games because, to avoid the pass. Jared Goff doesn't like to run, but he's not a non-athlete. He's not Dan Marino, who couldn't run at all. So, he in last week against Tampa Bay, he actually ran 6 times for 6 yards, but still, he's not to avoid the pass rush from the edge. I can see him running forward. Like that's the difference between like inside pressures versus edge. The edge guys are coming off you run forward. With the guys coming in your face, which what the Ravens did so effectively against him when they smashed Detroit, he's in trouble. So that's why I kind of like it, with the edge rusher being the specialty for San Francisco, that he'll run for his life.
Awesome. All right, and Steven, we're gonna bump you now, and we're gonna bring in Derek to talk about some kicker props. All right, Derek, what do you got in the kicker props today? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm typing. I didn't want you guys to hear that. All right, so Justin Tucker, over 1.5 field goals made. 6 out of the last 7 games that Lamar Jackson has played, he has hit at least 2 field goals made. And so, and it's going to be periodic rain in this game. So if there's any kicker I would trust in periodic rain, it is Justin Tucker. Then also the Chiefs have given up about 2 field goals made in the last 3 games on average to their opponents, and the model likes the over.
I like it. All right. And yeah, like you said, there's no one more you can trust in wet weather than Justin Tucker. I remember him missing, I think it was against the Niners a few years back, slipping on his plant foot, missing a field goal in the rain, and him like making sure every time, every kick after that, making sure that the grass is like perfect where his plant foot is. So, he'll be a perfectionist in this game.
I don't blame him. Shoot.
All right. What do you got in this next play, Derek?
Yeah. So Mike Bagley for the Lions. So the 49ers have the bottom opponents have the bottom 6 in passing touchdowns and rushing touchdowns per game. So with that, it's going to be a low scoring game. So you take as many points as you can when you have that opportunity. And then also the Lions opponents eat up a lot of clock because they only give up 7.8 yards per attempt this season. That's 31st in the NFL. And then also the Lions are in the top 6 in time of possession. So once again, you will definitely need to take the points when you get them. Although the wild card in this is Dan Campbell. He goes forward on 4th down as anybody else in the league. So that kind of concerns me with that. Other than that, I like this play at plus money.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a concern, but at the same time, at plus 150, you're factoring that concern into the line, right? You're going to get paid out for taking that risk.
Yes.
All right, Derek, we're going to pull you now, bring Steven back in and go into NBA. All right, first play, we're going to go through NBA kind of fast. We got a bunch of plays for y'all, though. First play here, I believe this is Jake's. Jared Allen over 11.5 rebounds.
Yeah, so in the 3 games that Allen has played against Milwaukee without Evan Mobley, he's gone over this number. He went 12, 13, and 12 in those games. We have him projected for 12.1 last time I checked. Yeah, 11.9 now. So it's gone down a little, but there's still a good value at over 11.5. So I like this play.
All right, next one for you, Jake. Dylan Brooks over 1.5 assists. And I apologize for not putting the team names in here, y'all. I was moving a little fast this morning, but I should have done that.
Yeah, we have him projected for 1.7 assists. So you're getting good value at plus money here. He's very, very streaky when it comes to his assists, but getting plus 135, he's averaging about 2.2 assist opportunities a game over his last 10 games played. So he needs his players to shoot it well, but if it just takes 2 dunks for him to hit this, but it's plus 135. So I like that. He's coming off a big assist game, right? His last game.
All right, next one, we got Markelle Fultz under 4.5 assists. I think this is you as well, Jake.
Yeah, this is my last play. I'm surprised this line's at 4.5. He's been hurt. He missed his last game, but he's back today. He's gone under this in 8 of his last 9 games. And some of these games, he's just playing 15, 20 minutes. So I'm surprised it's at 4.5. I guess it's because he's playing against a not-so-great Memphis defense, who has a lot of replacement players in. but still, I'm surprised it's at 4.5, not 3.5.
All right, next play we got. I believe we're on to you, Steven. Luka Doncic over 3.5 made 3-point field goals. He's got to be a little upset about after what happened last game, right?
Yeah, that motivation's good. And it's funny because he and Trae Young were traded for each other coming out of the draft. And he has not put up big numbers. He's never had more than 3 made threes when facing Trae Young, who should be back from his concussion. But I just don't think Young is the Luka stopper. So he's averaged, 4.2 made threes on the road this season. And his average this season up big from 2.8 overall last season. So I think the line's still being based on, last season is not his improvement this season.
All right, and we'll sneak a question in here. What do you guys have on Brandon Miller over 24.5 points, rebounds, assists?
Yeah, I like that a lot
lately, but I think he's due for a bad game. So, but I don't want to be on that bad game. But I mean,
we're not projecting over that. But I'm going with over in his made threes, over 2.5 made threes.
Yeah. So you guys, this is a perfect segue into Steven's play.
That's where he's been really consistent. And it's not just his 45% plus shooting the last 4 games. It's the attempts. It's the volume, right? It's 10 3-point attempts twice. So that's kind of where I like, since with the trade, there's, he's going to get all the looks that he wants. And, maybe there's a little bit of him versus Jabari Smith, former number 2 picks, whatever, who are stretch 4s from the SEC. I don't know. Not exactly, headline news.
Auburn, Alabama.
In our world, it's a big deal, I think, right?
That's a big deal.
Yeah. And then Houston's defensive 3-point percentage is not nearly as good on the road. They do allow plus 5% higher on the road.
All right, we'll go into our next play here. Buddy Hield over 12.5 points, minus 110 at MGM.
Yeah, I really like with Halliburton out. He's been on a nice upward overall trend with a nice 7-2 overrun and a 13.5-point average, but he's come under the last 2 games. So you got a hot player with a good overall trend who's due to bounce back from 2 bad games.
Yeah, Big Cheesy likes the Brandon Miller play, so I think we're good there. We'll go on to, we've got about 5 more plays left. We got Kawhi Leonard over 1.5 steals at plus 100. You're getting into these steals props, huh, Steven?
Yeah, I'm realizing it's more fun sometimes to go for those things that can actually happen in the first quarter. So Kawhi, we're projecting for 1.7 steals. His numbers up recently, up to 2.0 over his last 11 games, 7 and 4 overs. I just think that for Toronto, a lot of the guys projected for multiple turnovers, from Barrett to Barnes, everybody but Schroeder, the point guard, is somebody that might be matched up at times with Kawhi.
All right, next play here, we got Vince Williams over 1.5 made 3-point field goals. A little juicy, but you think the juice is worth it here, Steven?
Yeah, I wasn't manly enough to go with which I should probably be, is over 2.5 at plus money, because he's been playing well. Memphis is playing a lot better without their quote unquote stars. But I mean, obviously John Morant's a star, but Marcus Smart. He's on a tear with 9-1 streak over 1.5 with a 2.5 made average. He shot, I'm not Jake. I don't watch every game and every player. And I don't find the best value on a Monday morning, but I looked it up at VCU. He was a high volume 3-point shooter, attempting, 5 and 6 a game. And he made 40% overall his last 2 seasons. So he didn't do much as a rookie because he wasn't a big prospect and didn't get much action, but he shot like 14%. But this season he's back to what he was expected to be coming out of college as a 38% 3-point shooter.
All right, and next play we got Zion Williamson under 33.5 points, rebounds, assists at plus money here.
Yeah, Zion has gone from my favorite player to one of my least favorite players because he doesn't do what I loved about him, which was load up the stat sheet. He doesn't. His rebounding numbers down to 5.5. So they're healthy right now. And I just figure, just like I got kind of lucky yesterday with Tatum's under on his rebounds because they blew out Miami and he didn't play. But one reason I like Tatum under is because they were healthy, and I just figure he didn't need to play a big role on the board. So Zion isn't that eager a rebounder. And they have everyone there to kind of clean up that mess. So I don't see him getting a lot of rebounds. Yes, he's getting a lot of assists recently, but that's due to regress in my mind. And if any team is good defending the paint, it's OKC, which does excellent job in terms of 2-point percentage allowed. So then there's also a chance that even though we like OKC in this spot, there is a chance that New Orleans blows them out, in which case Zion would be the first player they sit to try to limit his minutes.
Awesome. All right, we got a couple more plays for you here. Donovan Mitchell over 1.5 steals at -110.
Yeah, so last game I didn't get any blocks from Jarrett Allen, and Cleveland came out flat defensively, and Cleveland's been really doing well defensively. You know, they held 4 straight opponents to under 100, and then even before that 102 and 90s. But then they gave up a bunch of points early to Milwaukee, and they were never really into that in that game. So I see them coming out in a kind of a back-to-back situation at Milwaukee with a little more defensive intensity. Donovan Mitchell is not a great individual defender, but he does go for steals. So, you know, the model has him at 1.7 steals. He's averaging over 2 his last 11 games, and he only had 1 steal the other night. So, again, a guy trending up in a category, but coming off of a bad game.
Awesome. And we've got one more play for y'all, but I'm going to throw up the recap for you guys now so you guys can take a screenshot of this, make it easier for you guys to make your plays because we've got a lot of them today. Our last play, Victor Wembanyama over 1.5 made 3-point field goals at plus money. And
I'm going to repeat myself, but another player who on a nice overall positive trend, a 9-3 streak, over 1.5 made threes, but didn't make one his last game against OKC. So, so San Antonio, they shoot much better at home from 3, and because Wemby shoots better at home, and he averages 1.6 made threes at home, the 11-8 over versus just 1.3 on the road. And I think Jake here had some kind of nifty stat about Portland defending.
Yeah, so Portland against centers are shooting 61.9% against Portland this season, which is 3rd worst in the league. And the numbers are on the bottom 10 of the league, and when they're 22 to 25 feet. So it's a good value play here.
Awesome. Well, that's all we've got for you guys today. As always, take a screenshot of these plays, take them home with you. We appreciate everybody tuning in. As I mentioned, Mackenzie will be back hosting next week. But until then, everybody, good luck on your plays today. Good luck in football this weekend. Good luck to Steven on the Ravens. And hopefully he'll be very happy on Monday. And, we can bring him in and he can give out some plays and be very excited about the Super Bowl. So appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll be back on Monday at 1. And, thank you.